Hello, and welcome back to The Myth Within. I'm Dr. Tom, and I'm very grateful to be back here with you today. I know it's been a few weeks since I released my last episode. That was because I took some much needed time to go with my family on vacation after the whole COVID closures in the state of California. It was time to get out and celebrate really the reason for the season, the reason for life in general. And that's to be able to give ourselves, as well as those who we love, new experiences to brighten life on a day to day basis. And today, this really brings me up to a subject. And the subject that I'm going to begin exploring right now is the idea of trust. I know we've looked a little bit at Old Sultan, the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, as the last point that we were analyzing the symbols of, but this really leads me into an area of trust. So it may be a small divergence, but we will get back to Old Sultan here in a while, especially as it relates to the symbols present in its storyline regarding trust and the trust that's built between people in general. As a practicing psychotherapist, I find one of the main elements that brings individuals to the office is really this ideal behind trust. Something's happened, whether it be something internally or something externally. Something's happened, and a person begins to lose their ability to trust in elements that they once found grounding within. And really, if we take a look at the psychological development of trust, this really is a foundational element of personality that begins very early in childhood. In fact, trust is shown to develop at the moment of birth. And in my own personal research, there is elements of prenatal trust that's formed between an embryo and a mother as it's developing within the womb. And so when we begin to look at this idea of trust, we begin to see a muscle that is really exercised throughout the lifespan. And while I liken this to a muscle, it is a neural network. But like muscles, neural networks, the more they are exercised in specific ways, the stronger that they can become. So one of the first things that we need to do is work around the definition of trust and develop a working definition. The simplest definition of trust that I've come across and that I've used throughout my career is simply consistency in action over time. One has to be consistent in their actions over time in order to produce results similarly, time and time again. And when we actually hear the antithesis defined in popular psychology, that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, yet expecting a different outcome. Well, while that may have a negative connotation to it, it actually truly it rings true as it relates to the idea of trust as well. When we begin to develop trust, we have to see that actions or behaviors are continuing over and over again, and they're producing same or similar results. If the results differ greatly, we will begin to not trust within the outcome present, and we may scrap the idea altogether. However, as we begin to see consistent outcomes time and time again, we begin to build trust in the nature of what it is that we're perceiving. Now, this strengthens the neural network of trust as it may relate to a process, whether it be like a work process, maybe a communication process, maybe a sales process, but also at a very relational level in how we deal with other people. As we begin to deal with other people, we quickly realize that consistency in action over time becomes a litmus by which we guard our feelings as well as open our feelings up to others. As we open ourselves up to our internal world to another person, this could be dangerous ground because we're putting ourselves out there, and if that putting oneself out there creates a means by which one gets burnt, the trust factor could close very quickly. However, in putting ourselves out there and finding that one's able to hold those feelings and able to amplify upon them, you're actually beginning to build within deeper forms of whether it be a friendly relationship, from an acquaintance or from a friendship into a more deeper relational meaning, whether it be interpersonal relationships or marriage or whatnot. And so when we begin to look at trust as a factor, we really have to take a look at this direction that we are going as it relates to where we are now. In order for people to relate and to relate in a growing pattern, we really have to define the means by which we grow interpersonally and define how that relates with the other individual's growth. This is where people can grow apart, even though they may have a trusting relationship. And so, as we begin to define elements of who we are becoming as we progress through the lifespan, it's really important that similar elements are happening on the other end in the relationships that you have built trust within. And if there's enough trust present, this really can create the means by which dynamic growth could happen between both parties in the relationship. And so I'm brought to a quote as we begin to look at the idea of using trust as a strength building exercise to move this process forward to engage the future you want. And the quote is from poet Khalil Gibran, who says, "Trust in dreams, for in them is the hidden gate. For Trust in dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity." Trust in dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. We have to have a form of trust at the dreams we create, and we have to find individuals that will help bolster us to realize those dreams' meaning. In finding these dreams, we engage the gate to eternity because this really is the life essence, the life work that we leave behind. And I'm really taken by this quote, especially as it relates to a foundational trust we have to develop. If we can't trust in our imaginal realm, if we can't trust in our dreams, much is lost, especially as it relates to our relational context. And so, as we look at things to begin trusting in, we need to begin to trust in our capacity to move forward towards our dreams, to advance confidently in their direction. And as we begin this process, we also begin to realize that people may be in support or in opposition to us moving in this direction. This is where we have to really weigh the elements of trust to that litmus of, is it being consistent in action over time? Now, dream life forward. See what elements are standing in your way, what elements may be bolstering you to move in that direction. And as always, my friends, namaste, and may blessings find you on your journey to advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. I'm glad to be back, and I look forward to hearing your comments. Have a good day.